Good evening, folks. We are live once again. Let's get everything switched over, get the BGM set up, and we will continue our progress in Dyson Sphere program. And that's the wrong way out. There we go. All right, let me test the BGM volume real quick, and then we will be good to go. Now I'll load our file real quick. While it's going. Okay, I'll leave the BGM music there, and I need to make it louder later. I will. All right. What are we doing with the base today? So I've done a little bit of renovating in Dyson Sphere. I was working on some stuff offline on this main file, trying to clean up a little bit of the production. It's not going to look dramatically different, but I started setting up some streamlined stuff using the logistics to kind of reconfigure some things and make the main area a little bit less cluttered. And if we go fly over to the main site near the bus, I could show off something that I started working on that I think will make things a little bit cleaner in the long run. And I started gutting out some of the stuff that I talked about doing in our previous sessions just to make this whole mess a little bit less messy. And so I pulled out some of the production stuff here and rerouted it. And now this main station is feeding the magnets. Magnetic coils. These are feeding directly to the bus so that all of our production that uses these magnets can do that. There's one more slot left for something. I'm thinking maybe we do turbines for this one a little bit later. Before we get into progression, I'm going to be taking a sidebar to boost production of the turbines because we're going to need them for the rings. We need, if you look at our inventory, we need these on the bus, super magnetic rings. These are used in a bunch of things. Specifically, we need them for the Dyson Swarm. We also need them for orbital collectors. They're used in several really critical items or buildings. And in order to build these, we need magnetic turbines, magnets, and graphite. These two are not going to be hard to get. I've already got sites that I set up to produce these two, and they're just funneling in the logistics and stacking up there. But these turbines are a hot commodity. So that's what we're going to work on first and get that set up. And let's see what's going on over here. Oh, that's right. This graphite site was feeding these power plants. Oh, okay, I see. It's feeding these and these. I think I'm going to get rid of these. If I see spots that I can potentially clean up along the way, I'm going to do that. Because we're going to want to reconfigure our base eventually. So it's going to be these. And all these. No, and these two. This whole section we'll pull out and Might be able to set up a different site that's doing hydrogen. One thing I've noticed in my offline save that I'm also playing, hydrogen is a bit of a hot commodity early on, and then as you start producing stuff, you kind of generate a surplus, and then eventually you have too much of it. So if we start setting up hydrogen burn sites, that's probably going to serve a little bit better. And where's all this? All this is feeding over here. Yeah, one thought I had was to take this production line, this is what's feeding the electric motors, over to the main bus, just this one spot here. I'll just delete this all out. We'll fix everything. Oh, this is going over there. It's for steel. Okay, alright, we'll leave that for now. We're not burning a ton of steel, but we will need more. But this line was going all the way, snaking through all this stuff, and going over here for the electric motors. So instead, what I think I will do, this stresses me out just looking at it, is eventually feed in motors from over here. Hey, Iconic's popping in. Iconic says, can't stay at the moment, dropping by to wish you a great stream, Raku. Best of luck. Sphere in them Dysons. Alright, Iconic. Thanks for dropping by to say what's up. Hope you have a good rest of your night, my dude. I cannot guarantee there will be monumental progress made, but at the very least, hopefully this giant spaghetti nightmare of a base will slowly start improving in efficiency and possibly aesthetics. We'll see. Also, just a quick plug, I'll mention it at the top of the stream and probably when we close later. Album release parties on Sunday. We get a chance to pop by in the evening. We're doing a late night stream for the first time in a while, 6:30 Pacific. But if you want to check out the new album and hear some interesting discussions with myself and the artists I worked with on it, then feel free to swing by. I need to make sure and make the event on the Discord go live so people can see it there too. But it will be here on the Twitch channel. It's not going to be hosted out of Discord. I just put an event there so I don't forget. Okay, I remember what I was doing. So we want this. All right, take it easy, Iconic. Thanks again for hanging out, or stopping by to hang out for a little bit. Since this is producing the motors too, we're going to run this up here. Basically, we're going to set up maybe a third site. I did another one, I just don't remember where I put it. I want to set several sites up that are grabbing all of the things to create motors, and then rather than have them shipped across the base from one end to the other, we're going to have the logistics station that I just pointed to down here. In fact, we can have them grab them now. This is going to feed them over to the bus, and then we're going to also be using these in a different site to create the turbine. That's the main reason why I started setting up production like this. But part of the other problem is figuring out how to get my belt all the way over there. Maybe we can go from here. I might just snake it around a little. Do I have enough clearance? Oh,
let's
just short.
Go.
Oh, Jesus. A raid from Wazzy, Toxicure, and the crew. What's happening, folks? Thanks for the raid. Let me get a shout out for Wazzy. How did the just chatting stream go? See, Bits. What's up, Bits? What's all this from you folks? Kakashi Lover, Broken Kidneys, Secret Project. What's your secret project? Oh, floor yelling day. Gotcha. I'm sure it was loud. Hopefully you had a fun time sitting on the floor yelling. Whoops. We are playing some more Dyson Sphere program. Trying to become Galactic Overlord while building an efficient base and engineering. Pause says, I'm doing promo. Tell us about the secret project. You folks want to hear about the secret project, huh? Alright. I will spill some beans. In fact, let me pause so I can actually think about what I'm going to say here. So as you folks know, you folks from the crew and some of the regulars that hang around here know, as part of my content and things that we do, sometimes on stream, sometimes off stream, I make royalty-free BGM music tracks for other content creators. I've talked about it in the past a little bit, but in case people don't know what I'm talking about, I have music on Spotify, Tidal, YouTube, and Bandcamp that is basically just free to use for people that want to create content, be it streams or YouTube videos or what have you. Just free music to use. And every few months or so, I usually release a new collection of music. Thanks for the follow, Broken Kidneys. Much appreciated. Welcome to the Space Bees. And interestingly enough, you folks rated just as I was telling Iconic, or reminding Iconic about the next upcoming release for music, which is going to be this Sunday at 6:30 in the evening Pacific time, right here on Twitch. We're going to be debuting the latest music project that I'm getting ready to release, which is not the secret project. But when we do those, I'll usually show off the YouTube compilation video on stream and talk a bit about the creative process behind the music. And if I've collaborated with people, sometimes I'll invite them on to talk about the project as well. And so if you want to see what that looks like, feel free to drop by on Sunday. But after that project releases, the so-called secret project that Wazzy's talking about is the next major release that is scheduled for this spring. Right now, we're targeting April, but there's no date set yet, but there will be a teaser for it coming soon. And that project is a sequel to last year's major RPG soundtrack release, which was The Lost Kingdom. Some of you folks might have heard some tracks from The Lost Kingdom. Wazzy features a few of those in her intro music when her stream is loading. And so Wazzy and I are partnering again. We didn't learn our lesson last year, and we are doing a sequel to that project. And that album, I guess I can mention the name now, and when I do the teaser for it, I'll mention it there too. The album is called Songs of the Spiral, and it's a direct sequel story-wise and character-wise. So if you remember, in Lost Kingdom, there's a bunch of characters that were designed based on our internet friend group. So folks like Bits, Ramen, Matt, Froggy, Wazzy, Blups are all characters in this story that we've been putting together, and they'll be featured in the sequel as well. So if you want to see what happened in that main cast of characters and what's happening next, then that's what Songs of the Spiral is going to sort of tell. And it's been a pretty big project, and what Wazzy is doing, which I don't know how much she mentioned to you folks, but she is animating scenes for each of the tracks. Just like last year, where there were animated scenes to go with each song that's featured in the YouTube video, for Songs of the Spiral, there will likewise be animated scenes for each of the tracks. And so that is the project that's in the works. Again, due out in the spring. Teaser will be coming soon, probably in March when I get back from overseas. And so if you want to keep an eye out for updates on that stuff, you can follow me on Twitter or subscribe on YouTube, since content related to my music always goes there, especially announcements for teasers and the like. And so yeah, that's coming soon. I think it's going to be a really interesting project. A little different from last year. Last year's one was pretty fun to work on, as I do like RPG music. This year was a bit more ambitious. Things were a bit more experimental this year, but I think it turned out well, and the animations Wazzy's been making are really cool. I think you folks are going to like them. So yeah, that is upcoming project Songs of the Spiral. All right, so what I've done here while sort of talking, trying to multitask here, I have set up the logistics station over here, which is now full up on items, is feeding electric motors over here. So there should be a steady supply of these going forward, which is what we want. Next, we need to focus on getting extensive production together for these things, these green motors. Electromagnetic turbines. So to recap for some of you folks who may be seeing Dyson Sphere program for the first time, this is a factory automation sim type game, and the way it works is you control this mech called Icarus, and you're dropped down on a planet when the game starts. That's generated based on seed data. And when you first drop onto a planet, it's just you and nothing else, just the wilderness. The whole point of the game is you've got to use your mech to accumulate resources and start building technology and automation, not vehicles, automation devices that will allow you to progress up a tech tree and increase complexity of your base to the point where you get the ability to leave the base and leave the planet, start building on other planets, and eventually the Dyson Sphere that the name comes from is a big metal enclosure that you build around a star to harness its power. That's the whole point of the game. And in between, you're fighting off this hostile enemy presence, the Dark Fog. They're these alien robots that want you dead, and they'll start building their own hive in your system. And as you progress, they'll start attacking you. Right now, they're leaving me alone because I kicked them off my planet. But eventually, when we start trying to draw power from the star, they're going to start sending planetary forces to come and mess with my base. So we're going to have to take the fight to them in space. So the whole name of the game in DSP is trying to increase efficiency while moving up a pretty vast tech tree of upgrades and technology to make progress while also fighting this hostile force that is periodically attacking you. And so what we're trying to do now, we're trying to build up to the point where we can start building the device that's going to harness the power of the stars. It's not the sphere yet, but it's the precursor. But in order to do that, we have to get a bunch of these materials to the point where we can start using them in the different objects we got to construct. So this big freeway looking thing with all these different icons is what's called a bus. And it centralizes all these critical ingredients we need to build A through Z items into one spot so that we can use our assembling machines to pull the materials off of the bus and craft whatever we need automatically. The point of the game is to automate everything so that you don't have to do it yourself. We do have the ability to create things using just our local inventory, but we'll need so much at such a large scale that in order to progress the game, you've got to figure out how to make your setup basically run itself. And that's part of the problem solving of factory and automation sim games, is figuring out how are you going to establish that automation. And it starts locally, mining resources like iron, copper in raw ore form, and then smelting that into ingots, and then taking those and crafting those into more complex things, to the point where eventually you are using things like these logistics towers to shuttle materials to and from the planet. Those are the little drones you see flying around from point A to point B. Instead of us trucking stuff with belts or by hand, they're flying materials between destination points. And so the whole automation portion of the game is unlocking new ways to do things more effectively while trying to, again, progress up that complexity level. And I guess you might be able to see it from the map, actually. This taller structure looks kind of like a tree, is an interstellar logistics station. It's currently not doing anything, but that device allows us to send ships to and from planets. Much like the local drones fly things around the planet, that bigger one allows us to send cargo vessels to other sites to bring stuff back and forth. And they're primarily doing that at the mining outposts. We're just full up at the moment. And as you progress through the levels of technology, you get the ability to eventually leave your home planetary system, star system. And I've showed this off before, but each of these multicolored dots is another system of planets. So eventually, when we get to the point where we can get beyond our system, we're going to be sending our ships all over the place to gather things for us, and we're going to be fighting these aliens pretty much anywhere we go. And so the scale and scope of Dyson Sphere program is really big, but it starts locally. It starts relatively small, and you work your way up. And you kind of see progress over the sessions I've been streaming this, from when we first started out to the point where we're going interstellar. And what I was explaining before is, once we kind of solve the power crisis in the short term, we're going to need to start gearing up to go to war in space. Because we haven't done combat in a while because we drove the Dark Fog off this planet, but we want them out of the star system. And so we're going to have to gear up with some weaponry. Like, I guess I can show off. Our mech is capable of deploying different types of drones. These are prototypes. And they'll fly around, they'll attack hostile things near the ground. But once we start getting into space, we're going to have the space equivalent of those things, and basically have a fleet of starfighters that we take with our mech to go and fight the Dark Fog out in space. And that's where things get kind of fun. But we have to be able to build up to that level of tech yet. And we're not quite there at the moment. So let's see. Down here. Okay, we started getting these. We can slot these in. These are a different type of drone. These are precision drones. They are stronger than the prototypes. Prototypes are fairly weak. The precision ones are the next level. And there's a third tier after this that will unlock eventually. So we'll get more and more powerful units we can deploy for attacking purposes. Let's see, I'm close am I to upgrading my capacity on fleet? Oh, we haven't done any. Okay. Oh, we should start doing that. These menus here for the different tech require these multicolored cubes in order to research. So in addition to just producing structures and automation, you have to produce structures that give these research cubes in order to advance up the tech tree. Okay, we have to keep steadily increasing our capabilities here before we go into a fight. But for now, it's a little low priority. Okay, over here. In order to kind of facilitate this production line that I'm working on, I set up magnetic coils and gears two things we need for those turbines. And I gotta figure out where I want to put that. Turns out this planet, a little hard to see because it's dark on this side, but we've occupied, I want to say, half. All the space over here is just mostly water. And so we'll have to start slowly expanding out and clearing the oceans so that we can continue to build out our facilities. Because there's a lot of unclaimed space. As you develop the planet and work your way up the tech tree, eventually the majority of the surface is going to be all factories and different facilities that we need. And that's kind of the progression until you eventually branch out and leave and go to another planet. And so let's see, where are we? I guess we can put everything here. Doesn't really matter. So what we'll do is we'll drop down a new logistics tower.
A logistics station.
And keep an eye on our power grid. This is our overall power generation and cap, as it were. The outer blue circle is our max capacity, 420 megawatts. We're currently consuming a little less than half at 195, 192, around 190. As we put down structures and buildings that do different things, they consume more of that power grid. And our next major step is getting the Dyson Swarm out into space, because it'll allow us to harness more power than things like our thermal plants over here. Since as our needs go up, the output of these things is going to get overtaken by that need. So it's a constant balancing act in the game like this between researching tech, moving up the tech tree, dealing with the hostile AI, dealing with power, and trying to make progress. Okay, so for here we need 2 ingredients. We need the motors, and we need coils. So the way we configure this is we build the logistics tower, we fill it with drones, little things you see flying back and forth, and then we say, what do you want? In this case, we want to demand the motors, and we want to demand coils. So it's going to take these from any tower that currently has them in storage. And there's quite a few. And they'll start to stockpile them up to a max of 5,000. So while it's doing that, we want to build out our production lines for turbines, and hopefully I set this up in a way it's not going to look terrible. But basically we have 2 lines: component, input, and output. And as we build stuff, our mech deploys these little construction drones. And in fact, we can drop one of these down to help us out a little bit. This will basically do that for us. This is our output. And our input is going to come from the logistics station. So we're going to have it feed out the motors and the coils. And then these are assemblers. What they do is they take items from a source and they build things from them. So in this case, if we want to build turbines, we need the motors and the coils. And then in order to get them in there, we need sorters, which move the things from point A to point B, and then from point A to point B on the output. So now this assembler is taking this stuff from the source, and it's crafting these little green engines. We can do, let's do 9 to start and see if that can keep up. By just using shift click, we can copy the entire building in its settings without having to go back, put a new one down, set up the sorters, and do all that. We can just copy, paste, and quick drop stuff, which is also very handy. Okay, let's put another 3 here. And I'm gonna try and show off like the mass building feature. Just hopefully, because I'm building vertically. I guess we'll see if it causes a problem. One thing that's kind of interesting about these types of factory automation sim games is a lot of the tricks for doing things efficiently are things you kind of learn as you play through the game. So we want to set up another production line of these turbines just like this, the exact same setup. 2 input lines, 1 output line, 1 set of 9 total. And so we could run all of the stuff out of here directly and do it item by item like I just did. Or we can copy paste the entire thing. And let's see. Need to save enough room. And just like that, our drones will take all the stuff, and as long as you have the items in your inventory, it's going to replicate the whole thing just like that. What took me, a minute or 2 to do by hand, just copy paste is done in seconds. And you can do that at a large scale as you go. And you can even take crafted setups and make them into blueprints so that you can pull them later and then just drop them down in large quantities. Like, this is one setup I've used. I'm not going to put it down, but there's a setup over here, just creating hydrogen and graphite. And this is a pretty complicated structure. You just plop it down, plop another one down, plop another one down, and it allows you to mass produce builds relatively quickly. And that's a pretty neat feature. I guess we'll put you here. And so the second line of turbines is ready to go. We just need to give it input. And so we'll go some of these, some of these. And now this line is going to start producing the turbines as well. And we need to tell the logistics station to store them once they're completed. Otherwise, they'll just back up and the production will cease, like up here. So we just do that. We tell it, you're going to store these turbines for future use. And now all the stuff here will feed in and start accumulating to be dispersed out a little bit later. And so I think we'll do one more. I think we have enough room for one more. We'll do the same thing. We're just going to copy paste this entire setup and drop it down right about here. Could have made it closer, but I dropped it down a bit further so I can feed the belts a bit easier. And then just like before, we tell it input 1. Input 2, and our output's going to have to snake over here because we're out of space, but that's okay. So we go up here. You can have the belts kind of crisscross over each other when necessary, and you can vault them, loft them in the air. So now I put you here, and you here. And so now we have a third line of turbines being produced. This is hopefully going to be good for a little while. Like I mentioned before, the magnetic turbines are a hot commodity for a bunch of things. So realistically, we probably want to set up at least one more fully fledged setup like this that has 3 or 4 lines being produced and contributing to the supply. But for now, I think this one will be okay. because if you look at the ratio, the magnetic coils, which or supermagnetic rings, require 2 turbines, 2 magnets, and 1 graphite. So we need to make sure we've doubled up production on the turbines and magnets, and the graphite is just 1-to-1. And that's kind of the juggling act too when it comes to figuring out how production is going to work. You have to look at the ratios of what's being produced. If one object has a higher ratio, then you got to make sure you have more of that feeding in than the others. And that's something I'm still trying to get better at. I wouldn't say I'm the best at optimizing ratios for stuff, but I'm learning. At this point, I've played this game for like over 300 hours, and I still don't feel like I know it super well. I've beaten it twice now. Once before the recent update that added the combat, and then once on my offline save since the update. And in beating the game, it just means you've created the Dyson sphere and maxed out the research to the point where you've achieved this one out here with the white research cubes. That's beating the game, but it doesn't really end. You can keep exploring and experimenting with builds and whatnot, and that's the fun part. Figuring out how to set up a new base on a new planet and do it better than before. For this playthrough on the channel here, I want to get to at least the end of the research, and then we'll see how long that takes. Okay, let's offload some of the stuff we don't need. We need to grab more drones. These are level 2 assemblers, which logically assemble things at twice the speed of the regular orange ones. But we need graphene in order for that to craft. Eventually I'll need to automate my graphene flow a little bit more, but right now where I'm at, I don't have a huge amount of that material. It looks like these plastic meshes. And where am I making them? It's all graphite. Is it over here? Yeah, it's over here. Right now, these are all feeding from here up to the bus. And they should be... Yep, here's overflow over here. So we'll just grab a bunch of these and drop them in storage for now. Same with the processors. These two are critical ingredients that we're going to need a better way to make. That's going to be a little more efficient because they're used in a whole bunch of things. Well, that'll be easier once we can get to another planet. Okay. So we dump some stuff in the storage here. Now this thing is going to keep producing these level 2 assemblers, which we're going to need. But now... Now let's see, where is our next objective? That is going to be something else I'm going to need to solve. These items, photon combiners, these are pretty important. They're going to be used in the components for the Dyson Swarm. So when I eventually get there, I'm going to need to fix the production line because right now it's pretty slow. They're being flown in from somewhere else, but we're going to need them produced at a much higher rate. But where do I want to put those rings? I talked a little bit in one of the previous streams about how we're most likely going to have to expand out the level of the bus, which means add another set of rows at the top for more ingredients we need. So it probably makes sense to do that over here. Let's make some room. And let's see, to kind of show off the blueprint thing. If we establish our starting point, the geographic lines on the planet. Thought that might be a problem. Okay, I have to do it by hand. Okay, we'll do it from here. Let's see, so we need to put down splitters. Those are these things here that are sort of directing traffic. Let's see. I gotta remember exactly the pattern. That's a little bit too close together. Basically what we want is to set up another entry point that's going to add 4 more layers on top of this freeway going this way. There we go. I think that should do it. I know how we can test it. We basically want stuff coming from the ground level and then lofting one layer above so that everything is going above the ground just like this. It's like one unit above so we can run stuff underneath. Okay, perfect. So what we just need to do is copy this. Oh, it's a little bit, I think it's skewed because we're basically moving up the planet, which should be okay. It's not going to look the prettiest, but one problem I had when I started setting this up on this particular planet is I built too far up. So as the planet moves north, you can see the latitude and longitude green lines. Things scale vertically as it gets closer to the poles, and so that kind of messes with the layout of your build a bit, but that's okay. It's not going to be pretty on here, but you can always fix it later. Oh, that's why it's off. How OCD do I want to be today? I'll fix it. Oh, I think the reason why I can't do that is just because of the scaling. All right, it's gonna be slightly off. I don't love it, but it's fine. This is probably going to be the last 4 layers we put on the bus. So we'll see. Oh, it's facing the wrong way. So these are input lines for everything here. And eventually we're going to be feeding stuff on here, and then they'll be parallel to these other parts of this main centralized spot for resources. There you go. And the way I've showed this off before, but I'll do it here just so people can see the blueprint thing again. The way we expand it out is by using basically a modular component, and of course the scale is going to cause problems, so I have to do it all by hand on those top 4. But for everything else, we just plop down these additional modular sections, and our drones will just extend out to the right additional spots. And that's really obnoxious that I have to do this by hand. Mental note, next time I do this, don't build north of the equator. Build right at the middle of the planet. Alright. So now this is set up, we want to start building those rings finally. And this is ocean, a little hard to see because it's nighttime, but I'm basically using these soil piles and foundation, which fills in water, to create building surface for us. A lot of this planet's water, so we're systematically eliminating the oceans in order to have space to build. And so up here, I guess we can set this about. Here we're going to go left to right. And likewise, we want to request the components for the rings. So we're going to ask this thing for turbines, magnets, graphite. And we turn on demand. Our drones are going to go fly all around and bring those components that we asked for and dump them right here. And so this one is a 3 component. Unlike the turbines we just did, which were 2. And I should be going south instead of north with all these. Oh well. Let's see if we can make it work. This is what I'm talking about when you move north to south. Because the grid line scale converges to the point, when you put belts down, they sort of snap to that. And as a result, I don't think you can do it manually. No. You can go at an angle, but if you're going at complete 90-degree angles, it pinches as it goes up, which looks kind of goofy. So maybe we just do 2. Like this. And the third component's going to go here. So we're basically repeating the same thing we did over on that other production site. We're going to use assemblers, and I'm going to try and do a couple. I'll have to see how many of these I want to do, because I want this feeding back here to store and use elsewhere, but I also want it feeding down here so that we can use it to start building things. So we'll see how much room we've got. And so like before, this time we're going to tell it to build supermagnetic rings. And for our input, we want turbines, magnets, graphite. I'll do sets of 9 here as well. I should have just enough room too. Let's add a little bit more so it'll reach. There we go. Okay, so now we have everything producing magnetic rings. We're going to turn this into the option to store. And I think what I'll do is I'll try and fit 2 or 3 in this area. Which I think I'll just have enough room for 2. Yeah. Another one right underneath. And I'm going to have all of it feeding in here and then an auxiliary line putting it on the bus. So rather than have to deal with overflow, we'll do it that way. So just like before, save us some time. We're going to copy paste and hopefully we have enough space. No, get rid of the water. Can't build on any sort of water hazard. We have to fill it in first. I'm going to move this one out. One, it's going to be slightly staggered, but it'll be easier to get the input and output. There we go. Just like that, exact same production line. So we need the exact same input. Turbines, magnets, graphite. And we can actually see our burn rate of materials in here, which will tell us what, if anything, is lacking in production. So based on this, we can see turbines are being burned at a fairly decent rate, but our magnets are being burned the fastest. And graphite is fine. So that tells me we need to build more magnet production somewhere. We need to get more of it into logistics so that this thing doesn't bottom out and we run out. And fortunately, although we didn't set up raw iron ore anywhere off-world. Okay. So I might have to reconfigure some of these. There are two things that can be crafted from raw ore iron, which are the blue crystals here. One of them is ingots, iron ingots, which are smelted using these blue smelters. And the other is magnets, which are smelted. Same device, and they're created this way. So I wonder if there's any untapped iron. There's some down here, way at the bottom of the planet. This map view here, which shows us our entire planet, it tells us our totals of resources. So we are pretty much okay on iron. We're running a little bit lower on copper. Silicon and titanium we don't even have, which is why we had to use our shuttles to grab them from off-world. Now you can see them flying back and forth, dropping their cargo off. They're flying from the nearby planet. They drop their cargo off and they go back out Grab more. Let's see. We could turn this site into magnets. Right now, all that stuff is going up and feeding one line of just steel. One set of steel. Yeah, okay, I'm going to get rid of that. That's not very efficient. Instead, we can have that creating the magnets and add them to the network. And I'll just delete all this out. Instead, we're going to turn this whole section into a spot to smelt the raw iron into magnets, and then we just have that flying to wherever we need it. Okay, so we want one line going all the way out. In fact, we could probably have a really long line of these. And then we're going to have it drop all of the magnets into a logistics station at the end. Maybe go 12. Yeah, I think we have enough room to do 12. We might have to fill in some more of the ocean to make space, but I think we can do it. Three, 6. Okay, that's 12. Basically, the way it works is each of these smelters has a certain capacity that it can produce based on how much it's being fed before it sort of runs out and there's no more input left. I think we could probably do more because this is 2 lines feeding it now, and there's this third one here I need to connect. Oh no, never mind, there's only 2. Get rid of that and put a third one here. So maybe we can do more like 18. Keep an eye on my soil piles. Running low on fuel. One thing you have to do periodically, you have to keep your mech powered. If it runs out of fuel, which is down here on the bottom, looks like a battery bar, then you lose mobility and the ability to fly. So you have to constantly keep it fueled. In this case, we're using graphite, which is not the most efficient, but it's the best we've got at the moment. Definitely don't want to run out of energy, because then you'll have to basically walk to the nearest source of power. Okay, so we're going to run the output here and see how the input keeps up. I'm going to tell this thing to store magnets. And see if it actually filters out. Nope. I think we need to break it here. Basically, all the stuff that's producing here is being overflowed, so it's not actually going anywhere. So we'll just create an alternate line that's going to feed in here, and it'll feed it faster. Oh, what happened to the output over here? Looks like it's every 6. Okay, let's do this a little bit smarter. There we go. Now I could see that it's currently not reaching all the way down here. So we need to take this third line, or rather put down a third mining machine and then have that send its cargo over there so the end of the smelting line can get the input it needs. There we have a save reminder, hydrate and stretch from slice of coffee. Good idea. I haven't saved in a while. Thank you for the reminder. And I will stretch and have some more of my fuel. I mean, technically, I think this is a Gamer Subs flavor. I don't remember. Not sponsored. Let's see if this will help production. Yeah, that's a little better. So now this 6 is getting input, same with this 6 and over here. So it looks like things are stacking up decently well here. We can go back to that magnetic ring site and see if the input for magnets is still lagging behind. That's why we came down here to fix that. But let's get rid of all this raw ore. Cluttering up our inventory. Talked about it a bit before on stream, but this is one thing I like about Dyson Sphere program. It's kind of problem solving oriented. So you have a bunch of goals and things you got to deal with, but as you go, the main thing you're trying to do is solve, you know, problem A, B, C, D, E, whatever. And it forces you to constantly be thinking. And I wouldn't have immediately thought that I would like a game like this, but one that really kicked off the genre several years ago that's pretty well known in the genre is Factorio. It is very similar to this because it kind of started the whole automation genre, really got it a lot of attention, but its scope is a little bit more narrow. You don't go off-world in Factorio. You're basically on one planet, and that's where you focus for the majority of the game. But that's a really fun one, too. A friend of mine introduced me to that one, and I ended up playing it for hundreds of hours. I think I like the scale of Dyson Sphere program a bit more, but I wouldn't have even got into the genre at all if it wasn't for Factorio. All right, let's go take a look at our rings. And in the meantime, what can we upgrade? I think our mech-based upgrades, yep. We've done up through yellow research. The next one that we're going to have to target is purple. That will be probably after we get the Dyson Swarm up and running. We're not quite there yet. Okay, so we could see here our magnet production is still lagging, and I think it's because we are also pulling the magnets for the magnetic coils, things like the copper rings, in addition to these, which I hadn't initially thought would be an issue, but I do have a potential solution. We can show off the kind of off-world capabilities a little bit, see if we can solve the problem. So first we're going to make sure we have enough smelters and belts and sorters. Yeah, I think we're good there. So what we'll do is I'm going to set a new interstellar logistics station, the big tree. And we are going to set up
You've built an
some additional traffic to and from the world. Now let's see. On the mining outpost itself, this one does not have a gigantic amount of iron, which is a problem. Bit more over here. This is the planet that the dark fog is actively occupied. We could try and go down here and drive them off, but we have no presence here, so we'd have to establish a power grid and everything else. Each one of these little transparent icons is a relay station, which is what they send out to the planets and start building their bases on the world. So each one of these signifies an enemy base we'd have to fight and destroy in order to start building our own stuff on the planet. And I don't know if I have the resources to really do that at a large scale. So what we probably will do is we're going to go to the nearby mining outpost and try and solve the problem locally first.
In cruise mode, you can fly the mecha to different planets or planetary systems.
So this is showing off our ability to leave our home planet, which is right there. And we're going over to an alternate base here on the mining outpost, and let's see if we can come up with a solution to our iron and magnets problem. This particular site is being primarily used to mine and smelt silicon, the green bars here, and titanium, the white ones. And we've got a couple things around the planet that are mining and shipping all of the commodities up here so that our ships can go and grab them. You see one right there taking off and flying back to our home base. So let's see, where's all the iron? Okay. Our only iron deposit is down here. My initial thought was to set up something that's going to allow us to smelt iron and then truck it directly off of the planet in the form of magnets, but I don't know if we have enough. This cluster of veins has 4 of these currently. Let's see. Could pull this off. This is gonna slow down production over here, but I think that's actually okay. Question is, because we have one line, I might be able to squeeze another one in here, like maybe 3. Oh no, I can get 5. Okay. These mining machines are what's harvesting these minerals from all the different sites. The more you have sort of clustered around, the faster the vein is going to deplete. So this is a really temporary solution, but it might work in the short term. So we're going to set up our smelters doing the exact same thing, taking the raw iron ore, turning it into magnets. Let's try and do 12, 6 and 6. I'm going to have you feed the rest down here. And the output, we're going to run up to this logistics station, which is currently bringing iron ingots being smelted here and then taking them up to the main site to be shipped off-world. So now we want this one to be bringing magnets. Okay, I'm just taking a look at seeing how fast it's shipping the stuff out. Wonder it's being choked slightly over here. Yeah, that's fine. It's not perfectly optimized, but that's okay. See, a lot of the iron is being pulled and sent over to the main site to be shipped off because we're using a lot of iron. What we really need is a planet that we can go and farm in large quantities, which is what we're going to be building towards later. But for now, we got to make do in our immediate system because that's all we've got. Okay. So now, just like we did before, we're going to go back to the main site where everything's being trafficked. Oh, this thing's full already. That's why. Okay, we have this thing shipping circuit boards, which is good. These are also a commodity we need. But what we can do, we can set up another logistics station. It's going to put some stress on the power grid here, but it should be okay. These things require a huge amount of power. I'm out. I forgot to grab more drones. Whoops. Okay, we'll have to do that later. So what we want this one to do is take all the magnets that are being produced at that alternate site and store them here. And then eventually we're going go back to our home world and say, ship the magnets from this station to our home planet to get more. That's the whole point of doing this. So I'm gonna have to remember that. Get more drones. And fortunately, because of how our planetary system spawned, we're right next to our main planet. That's really lucky. Okay, where are my drones? Let me grab those before I forget again. There they are. Alright, so now what we're going to do, we're going to turn this one on, and we'll see the ships take off and start grabbing stuff and bringing the magnets over here. Alright, so we got a hydrate from Red Dragon. What's up, Red Dragon? Welcome to the stream. How you doing today? Alright. Now Red Dragon says, been here from the start. I see. Well, then I don't need to catch you up to speed because you've seen me tinkering around this whole time. Alright, we tell this one remote demand. And now the ships are going to take off to go grab magnets from the mining outpost. Eventually they're going to have to grab it in small chunks because it's not producing very quickly. But it will help a little in the short term. Dragon says, surviving, and you? Yeah, I'm doing alright. It's been a busy work week. A lot of stuff going on. Trying to get a lot of projects at work done before I go on the trip next week, which is a bit of a challenge. But other than that, I got no complaints. I'm ready for the weekend. It's a holiday weekend for us here in the States this weekend, so that's nice. If I have any more rings, I do. We're gonna throw this in that main station. I gotta deal with all of these random dump chests of stuff at some point. Just garbage sitting here, taking up space. So what this is doing, as the cargo ships and the vessels bring back more magnets, because this is locally connected to the logistics network, our drones are going to pick up the magnets and take them where they need to go here as well. So the whole point of doing this is to get more of these magnets to supply things like the rings, the coils, and everything else we're trying to build. Because I think our coil or our super magnetic ring production is still going to be slightly slower. Yeah, it's lagging a bit, but it's better now. We can see the influx of magnets is coming in from all the other sources, so that's helping. Doesn't completely solve the problem, but it does help. And you can see here we've almost filled up our supply, so now I'm going to run this down to the bus. And we'll start actually using these things. The whole point of us spending almost an hour and a half redoing production is to do this right here and add this important resource to the bus. Because we need to start creating some of the key structures we need, and we had to get that stuff on there in order to do that. And the first one I think is going to be the EM rail ejectors. But in order to do that, we're going to need to expand the bus some more. And keep researching stuff. I mentioned that we're going to need to start researching offense, weaponry. And to that end, let's grab explosive weapons, drone damage, attack speed. Queue all three of these up. And now we're going to expand out. I think two iterations should be okay for now. Oh, I need to set splitters up here too. Yeah, we'll do it like this. And we'll extend it out when we get there. The rest of these we can use the blueprints. Let's do it automatically. But if there's a little tiny spot of water, it's a little bit hard to see unless I flip the camera like that. We have to fill it in. Run out of soil piles. Okay. That should be fine for now. Let's go ahead and save. And now we're going to start setting up. What's it doing all the way down there? We're going to add more assemblers. We're going to start creating all these critical structures that we need, which is why we added all this stuff to the bus to begin with. So this first one, we want the EM rail ejectors. These are the objects that look like these rail cannons, and they shoot solar sails into space around the star. That's the first thing we need. So for this one, we need steel, gears, processors, and the rings. So steel, gears. And to kind of illustrate what I was talking about with the bus, when we have all this stuff on this main access way here, we basically run a path underneath using the splitter and feed it down to wherever we need it to go to build stuff. And in that way, it centralizes our production. And it's a really kind of compact and organized way to do it. And then our sorters down here, feeding the source to the destination, and now we need the rings. The last component we grabbed up here. And now these things will start pulling in here. And our EM rail ejectors will start getting crafted here, and I will do 2 stacks for now. That's good. Next up, we want the ray receivers. These are companion parts to these ejectors. And for these, they look like kind of like satellite dishes. These gather the energy being harvested in space, and they transmit them to the grid. And so for these require 5 components compared to these other ones with 3 or 4. So we need steel, silicon, combiners, circuit boards, and rings. Where is our silicon? Up here? Yep. And combiners. Combiner's gonna be near the top. Way near the top. Up here. And we need to put a splitter here to run. That's my mistake. Without this, we can't split that part, or split the line and have it go down to wherever we need it. There we go. So you are gonna follow this one down. Here. What am I missing? Oh, whoops. This was supposed to go first. Oh well. It's fine. I'll have to twist it around a little bit, but okay. This is one of the rare ones where we have 5 components feeding in, so it gets a little bit more cluttered, but it's not a big deal. So now these things will be produced and dumped over here. It's going to use a lot of steel. How are we doing up here? Okay, not bad. We're going to need to increase production of these at some point. But for now, we'll let these go. The 2 things that are drawing the rings are the rail ejector and the ray receivers. Once these stop production, we'll have a little bit of overflow. But the next thing we need to make, and this is going to be the part of the production I mentioned, is going to be kind of a pain to deal with. We need to create solar sails. Solar sails are these kind of fan-looking things that are shot by the rail cannons into space. And what these do is they go out from the planet, and they start orbiting the star in like a ring. You can choose the orientation and the shape or radius of the orbit, and these sails basically float and orbit around the star, and they start gathering its energy and transmitting the energy back to the ray receivers, which bolsters your power grid. But in order to do that, you need to have a whole setup of these rail cannons with these solar sails supplied to them in order for them to do their thing. And once that starts happening and we start sending stuff into space, the hive of the dark fog, which is kind of chilling here, they're gathering stuff from the hot zone and building their fleet out. Once we start harvesting that power, they're going to immediately aggro to us. So we need to keep researching our combat upgrades, because we're going to need to get defenses in place locally, and then eventually we're going to need space-based weaponry, which is close. The first one down here, the corvettes. These are basically starfighters. They're drones that are deployed, but they go out and fight things in space. And they're pretty cool looking. But we need purple research before we can get there. So we're going to have to just defend in the meantime. Okay, so let's go ahead and save. So what does that all mean? We need solar sails. How are we going to do that? Well, we don't really have a stable output of the combiners. It's very slow. It's being produced up here, or where is it? I set up a whole site to produce these, and I thought it was somewhere above the base. But either way, it's not enough. You can tell because our production is bottoming out. So what we're going to need to do is set up an additional site that's going to produce those in mass, along with graphene. So we have a couple ways we can deal with that. Probably the first thing we need to do is get orbital collectors. And this will be a bit of a side quest, but we're going to need to do this because it's going to help out our resources a lot. So in order to do that, we have to start producing a couple other things that are components for those orbital collectors. And the first of which we already have. The others we should be able to get relatively easily. Let's see. Let's increase your storage a bit. Maybe not that much. Let me go here. We're gonna need these reinforced thrusters for that particular building. So the orbital collectors require 4 components: the interstellar logistics items themselves, the big towers, the supermagnetic rings, which we just started making, the reinforced thrusters, which are over there, and full accumulators, which we don't have. Accumulators are these things. They're basically big batteries. They can be used to store power from some sort of source that generates it, and then they can be used to disperse that power into the grid later. I don't really use them a ton, but you need them for these orbital collectors. So first we need to produce these, which again we needed the rings in order to do. And I don't know. I guess we'll find out if I have enough range to transport the silicon crystals. We have some way over here. Actually, we could just run them from the bus. I could just smelt them myself. We'll do it further up. I think that makes a little more sense. They're only used for a couple specific things, and the orbital collectors and the accumulators are one of them. So we'll do that. Since we don't really have a shortage of silicon now, we'll run this line down here and we're going to smelt these. That we can run right underneath, go parallel. And let me do 6 of them. 2 sets of 3. And what we do is we will run these into storage over here. And we're going to pass them up to the building that we actually need to produce the accumulators, which will be... I guess we'll put it here. I probably should have just run this between in the middle, but that's fine. In fact, we'll do it like this. It'll be slightly off for this one. So we need iron and rings. We should be good on the rings for now. There's a couple other things that these are required for, but these 4: collector, accumulators, ejectors, and the ray receivers are the big ones. Everything else we should be okay for now. Actually, I don't need to do that. Instead, we're going to set up a charging station. I'm going to do this a little differently than I did in my offline save. I'm trying to make this a little bit more efficient. So these things, energy exchangers, are the things that charge the batteries and basically infuse them with power. And this also is going to put a bit of a pinch on our energy grid, but it should be okay for now. And these things look cool. They look like these little cone, and then when you turn them on, they open up like a flower. Like so. So now this thing is connected to the grid, and it's basically pulling in power and can be used to charge up these empty accumulators. So what we want is for the empty ones to be run all the way down here and go straight in like so. And I don't know if I can pass them from accumulator or from charger to charger. I'm going to try. I don't know if this works. We'll see. So the empty ones will get flown down here after they're produced, and they're going to go into this one. And no, it does not look like it works that way. Okay. Well, they're being fed in here, but where are they going? Are they? Oh, they might be getting consumed into the grid. I don't want that. Whoops. Ah. Didn't want to do that either. Okay. I think instead we want to do it like this. Basically, we want these feeding in to charge, and then the output. I need more belts. It's going to spit out the fully charged ones, which are purple, and that's what we're going to use for the collectors, which is going to be assembled right here. Oh, we need to go get more belts. I have a stack of rings. I should go drop those off. I'm not actively using them for anything. I'll put them in here. I must have crafted those by hand at some point. Okay. So we need to have output dumping these completed. Completely charged ones over here. And I started doing this earlier with the assumption I was going to need to produce the collectors next. So I kind of started doing that already. We'll let that go. That'll shut off in a sec. And then I think I'm going to... Yeah, I'm gonna set this one up with logistics bots. They'll fly some over here.
You've built your first logistics distributor.
Should have extended this out. Yep, that's annoying. Okay, so this is going over here. And we want to set up... Hopefully I have enough room. So this is for collectors. Now we need each of the components for this one. So we should be able to run you all the way over here. Actually, maybe go around. This one's 4? Yeah, it's 4. I think we're going to run the accumulators right next to it. Try and keep it as compact as possible. Well, you kind of in the way. It's an oil source. We'll just bury that for now. Okay, so I have those two. We need the reinforced thrusters, so we'll have the bots fly those over here, the little fidget spinners. We'll have those fly in from here. And we'll just have 2 stacks. We don't have to pull them all out of the storage over there. Okay, so now those are going and grabbing them from on that side. So now these go here. And what's left? Rings. And that should be it for the collectors. What I'll do is I'll give this a minute to start producing all of the orbital collectors, and then I'll go show you folks how it actually works when you put these on a planet. It's kind of neat, and it's a little bit slow, but ultimately it's going to help us a lot. Boy, it's a lot. 50 rings for one orbital collector. That is not cheap. How are we doing? Okay. We're actually pretty close to hitting surplus. That's good, but we're going to need more. And we're still really low on magnets. To keep that in mind. While this is going, we don't have to sit here and watch this. Yeah, these are kind of slow to create too. While these are being produced, we will go see if we can solve the combiner problem. Okay, I'm going to set up some overflow for turbines. No, I don't want to do that. It's going to cause a higher drain on the magnet coils and the magnets themselves. Normally I would do that, but in this case I'm not going to. Oh, what's going on over here? We hit the bottom of our power consumption. That must have just happened. Oh, I wonder if it's because of the exchangers. We're at 100% capacity. That's not good. Oh, well, that's part of it. Part of it, we are actually running on a deficit of hydrogen. Didn't expect that to happen. A huge section of our power grid went down. That's why. Okay. Well, I guess we got to deal with that first before anything else. Okay, yeah, because it's getting tapped out, this whole section is not powered. Let's see, I'm gonna be able to fix it this way. We're gonna run graphite. This other section, power it that way. Bit of a stopgap solution, but once we get orbital collectors out and doing their thing, we're not going to have a shortage of hydrogen. It's going to solve our hydrogen problem, which is going to go straight over here until we get the Dyson Swarm up. Okay, this should fix things. Like, this is the entire major chunk of the grid that's gone. We lost about 150 megawatts, which is interesting. I think it's also because we're charging things with the exchangers. I think that puts a pretty big choke on power. Yeah, I think that's what it is. This purple part is the charge. So I think that's still, it's not exceeding capacity, but it's basically topping out the whole thing, which is a problem. Okay, now this stuff burns at a slightly less efficient rate than hydrogen. So I'm pretty sure it's not going to get all the way down here to these last three. So what we'll do is we'll pull these out, and maybe once we get dedicated hydrogen influx, we can set them up somewhere else. Yeah, like all these. They are not powered, they're just sitting here, dead weight. Let's go back and look at the power draw on one of those exchangers. I'm pretty sure that's what's causing such a choke on the energy grid. And here's where we're doing combiners. So we're going to need another setup kind of like this somewhere. Maybe we can expand this out. Yeah, I'm going to start doing this now. I'm going to have to come back in a little bit. But we'll have you grab glass, which... glass is a bit of a scarce commodity at the moment too. That's easy enough to solve. There's several stone veins kind of scattered that we're not using. We can go set up some logistics and mining around here to harvest glass and ship it over. So I need to remember that this is here. But let's go back and look at the power consumption. See. Yeah, each one of these is consuming about 60 megawatts, it looks like. Like if we were to idle these, it would probably immediately relax the strain on the grid. Yep, it's that extra core that's being used to charge. Okay. Okay. Can't really do much about that now, but we need to be careful. What's going on with these? Why are they all empty? Why are they all empty? That's strange. These are supposed to be fully charged. Let me go see if I can figure out why that's happening. Oh, I wonder if it spat out a bunch of them. Uh, hmm. I don't know why I did that. Well, we're just going to chuck a bunch of these in here. Should be charging all these and spitting the fully charged ones out. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. Weird. And one of these takes, 20 of them. Yeah, this is a slow process. Only one of the interstellars, which is good, but these are also not being produced at a terribly fast rate. Eventually, we're going to have to get into proliferation. That's probably going to be an entire stream's worth of discussion and whatnot, but we'll get there. Okay, how many of these do I have? Please tell me I have at least a few of them. 5. That's not as many as I would have hoped for. Maybe I should. No, I was thinking about putting overflow for there, but I'm just going to put these in off to the side because we want. No, we'll do that. Need to be careful because we have this stuff constantly producing accumulators. It's going to continue to drain our rings, and I don't want to do that. But let's grab these. Let me show off how the orbital accumulators works. These things are kind of neat. So we're going to go into space, and we're going to go to our conveniently located gas giant. This big blue ball right next to us is not an actual planet. This is a gas giant. So we can't land on it because it's gas, but we can harvest important materials from it. And in order to do that, we need to get down to the planet's surface and find the equator. And in order to do that, we're going to have to kind of fly around until we can find the solid bold line that goes around the middle of the planet. Which I think I'm going away from it. It's a little bit tedious, but once we find it, then we're gold. These orbital collectors are basically big logistics station looking things, but they're installed on top of a gas giant. And once you install them, they start passively mining the resources and collecting them. And you use your logistics ships from the big towers to come and grab their contents and bring them back home. And so they're very useful because they just keep gathering at a set rate depending on the gas giant. And depending on the nature of the gas giant, they have, I believe it's only 2 different types of resources you can get. Oh, here we go. I was going perpendicular. So here's the equator. So what we do is we just plop one down. And these have to be a set distance apart.
You've constructed an orbital collector. It can
Yeah, I'm explaining it right now. And they have to be a certain width apart. You can't just stack them really close. And we can only put down 5 now, but we might as well just have them start. And what I'll do is I'll put down the ones I've got, and then I'll show off how they actually work. And it'll be easy for us to figure out where we're supposed to go in order to put these, because we found the central line at the equator. There's the last one. So these don't have any settings. You really don't do much with them. But if we click on it, we can see here that they're already starting to gather two materials that this star produces, or the gas giant produces. First is hydrogen, which we are going to need to power some of our thermal plants, and eventually we're going to need this for deuterium as well. But the one that's a little more useful is this one, fire ice. You can find this as rare ore deposits on planets. It's a little bit less common, but it is a very, very useful resource because it allows us to use an advanced recipe over here, which is graphene. Right now, we're using this mixture of sulfuric acid and graphite to craft graphene, and that's very expensive. Once we have fire ice, we use this by itself, and it'll craft graphene and produce hydrogen at the same time. So it's a twofold resource that gives us graphene with less expensive components, and it'll give us spare hydrogen. So in a way, once we can start pulling this off of the planet, it's going to solve a lot of our immediate hydrogen problems, because it's going to start giving us hydrogen that we can use to power a bunch of our thermal stuff while we work on the Dyson Swarm. And that's handy. It's accumulating at 150 per minute. I don't know if that's above or below average, but each one of these orbital collectors to start is going to passively gather both of these resources, and all we have to do is tell our interstellar logistics station to come and grab this, and our vessels will fly out here. They'll basically do a flyby, and they will grab whatever resource we tell them, just like it would be on a planetary or an interstellar logistics station on a planet. So these are functioning like resource points out in space that our ships can come and grab the stuff from, and they'll truck it back home. And since we've got 5 of them, we can start gathering fire ice now. Eventually, and I don't know if we'll be able to see, there we go. We can run these all the way around like a belt around the equator. And once we do that and they're up and running, it's going to give us a virtually infinite amount of these two things, which is going to solve quite a bit of our production problems. And so that's pretty big. Getting orbital collectors is very handy, and we can start taking advantage of that now. So let's head back to home world and have our new logistics station that we just set up have this one start grabbing fire ice. This one over here. No, not that one. This one. The one that's grabbing magnets. So all we do is tell it, hey, go grab fire ice. And it's going to go to either the nearest planetary or interstellar logistics station if we're mining it. But since we're largely not going to be doing that, if we tell it remote demand, then it's going to go grab it from the gas giant. We'll be able to see the ships taking off, and now we'll see them flying over. You won't be able to see them interact too much, but they're basically doing a flyby of those orbital collectors. They're grabbing the resources, and then when they're full, they'll turn around and they'll come back. And they'll bring fire ice and start storing it here. So just off the bat, we've got 2,000 of them. And that's great. That means we can basically start phasing out our graphene production, which is something I didn't do on my offline save. I just sort of set it on top and kept going. But in order to free up some of our production, specifically our refined oil, we're really not going to need refined oil as much. So what we're going to do is figure out where our production is for graphene, and we're basically just going to delete it. And instead, we can funnel all of our sulfuric acid into our titanium alloy, which is something we're going to also need. Okay, this site is eventually going to go... Actually, no, we'll leave it. It'll be pulling hydrogen from somewhere else. A lot of these stray thermal plant sites, once we get the Dyson Swarm up and running and pulling power that way, a lot of these are just going to get deleted. But we'll leave them for now. Okay, where are we? We're actually down here. So this site right here, this site is largely going to go away. Instead, actually, I'll probably just build the site up for fire ice. And we'll have all of the sulfuric acid and these pea-colored receptacles here go into a logistics station to store, and we'll use it elsewhere. So, to that end, let's illustrate what I'm talking about. So we're going to unhook you. We're going to unhook you, which is going to temporarily halt our graphene. Let's see, we'll go here. Store oil. Store graphite. Let's make some room. In fact, we can flush this entire area out because we're going to delete one of these lines, because fire ice, when you're using it for graphene, it's just one resource. So we can delete this, and then we're going to clear all this out. And again, it's going to temporarily cut production off, but we'll fix that in a sec. Oops, maybe that. I'll keep that for fuel. And now we're going to have this one grab the fire ice that's being pulled from space. So right now this is the only spot all that stuff's going to go to, but I'm probably going to set up a few of these for fire ice, because we can use the hydrogen and we can use we definitely need the graphene. So our drones are going to zip over, pick up fire ice. And now we have it feeding in this way on the input side. But we have to change the recipe. Normally it's using the standard one, which is the sulfuric acid plus graphite, but now we want the advanced. And likewise, we tell all these here, convert the recipe over, and we do have to make one slight change to the output before I forget, because now it's not just graphene, it's spitting out two things. We need to run a splitter, otherwise it's going to dump a combination of hydrogen and graphene up onto the bus, and we don't want that. So we want this one will be graphene. And then hydrogen, we're going to pull over here. And I'm going to set up a series of tanks to store it. And this is going to feed in the logistics station to send off elsewhere where we need hydrogen. And it doesn't produce it at a super fast rate, but the fact is it'll just be extra to go somewhere where it's needed. And that should help some of the spots where we're running low on hydrogen for our power plants. And right away we can see it's already being picked up and flown elsewhere. So to that end, what we could do, because we're not burning through fire ice at a super fast rate with just one row, I think what I want to do is set up a parallel line of these chemical plants to spit out some more graphene, because again, we're going to need a lot more. Right now it's not being actively consumed that fast, but once we start constructing solar sails, that's going to put a big hit in our graphene, so we're going to need a lot. Oh, it's also used in the Casimir crystals too. That is another real pain of a resource to deal with. It's expensive. It's expensive until you get those grading crystals. Okay, so let's run another line. I'm going to do this one manually, since it's going to be a little bit longer than the other one. No, let's get rid of these. So we're going to run sets of 6. Oh no, 2. Sets of 2 because these are a little bit longer than the other ones. And we might have to go grab more of these off the bus. But likewise, we want this one feeding in with fire ice and then spitting out a combination of the graphene and hydrogen. And it's basically going to connect up here. Actually, let's put the recipe in first. Another substance we're going to need to start thinking about, which is why we need so much graphene. We need carbon nanotubes. That's another really, really important one that we need. To that end, not only are we going to need stuff on the bus for graphene, but we're going to need a surplus of it to start using for this. This is used in a whole bunch of really important things, specifically particle broadband and frame material. Frame material is critical for the Dyson sphere components, which we're going to need in the late game. Okay, I'm going to do a couple more. We'll go further out. Let's try that and see how fast that spits out our components. And in the meantime, our orbital collector should be manufacturing. So as soon as I get this hooked up, we'll pop back over there and see if we have more that we can go throw up there on the gas giant and speed up our production of both hydrogen and fire ice. I wonder if I could just route this directly over here. Yep, now that works. So this is being fed to the bus. We're going to do a separate logistics station to store these for now. This is going to be for eventual use in the solar sails. Yeah, let's see. How is the output looking? Okay, I had this problem before. We need to break it here. Because it's basically getting cut off and the output isn't going anywhere. So let's see if we can run this here, if it'll still split accordingly. It should. We'll make sure we want all the hydrogen going off and then the graphene going up. Yeah, all right. Okay, that's pretty decent production rate for graphene. I think that will do for now. Now let's go take a look at our orbital collectors. This will be the last thing we do before we wrap up for today. Seven? Okay. I might need to set up more of these exchangers to do this faster, because we have a whole bunch of the accumulators. But yeah, let's see if we can fit another 2 down here without completely tanking our power grid. So we want this one to go all the way over here. Output down here and input up here. Ah, this is in the way. Okay, can't fit that there. But we have this one over here. Let's see what's this doing. Overall output's down. Now we're under 300. We need to go look at our our plants and see if a bunch of our thermals offline again. It should struggle a little bit less now that we're getting more hydrogen, but it could be still coming in at a slow rate. So we'll do this. We'll grab these. We're going to throw them on the gas giant, and then we're going to tell our Interstellar Logistics to start requesting hydrogen as well. Yeah, 272. That's really low. Something must be offline. We were at 450 something, near 420 something near the start of the stream. So a good section of the grid must be out of power. Okay, these are kind of struggling a little bit. These are all offline. Some of these are offline. These ones are doing okay. This whole section. Oh. Yeah, okay. Well, we're going to get rid of that. Yep. This one's run out of power. This one's barely holding on. Okay. All right. I have a solution to that. But it's going to require more logistics power. Actually, first, before we do that, let's go up to the gas giant and drop the rest of these orbital collectors. Put them in place so they can start doing their thing. I think you can fit, depending on the size of the gas giant, you could fit like 3 dozen of them. Maybe 2 dozen of them all the way around the planet. There we go. So we're just going to drop the remaining 7 we've got wherever we have space. And hopefully before I completely run out of power and I'm stuck on the planet. One more. Oh, didn't realize these things are lagging. I'm placing myself. Okay, we gotta go back before we run out of power. So now these ones are doing their thing, and they're passively mining. Let's go back, refuel, and then we're gonna turn on the interplanetary logistics to grab hydrogen from all those, which should be building up on the ones that have been sitting there for the last 30, 40 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna run this one right here. So we tell this one, go grab hydrogen from interplanetary resource. So right now, all the stuff that's coming in looks like a little shy of 4,000 is going to be pulled directly from that giant. And the logistics vessels will continue to fly out and grab some from the collectors as they stack up enough that they can pull in one cargo load. So now, when they come back down and offload their cargo, the entire logistics network is going to get a bump in hydrogen, which for now is going to help because it's going to start going out to the power plants. I guess as soon as it pops in here, it's going to start getting pulled. Yep. And it's probably going to get depleted faster than it can be stocked up for now. Yep, here's one of them. But we can use this one now to fuel this other set of plants. I guess I didn't need to delete that. I could just swap the cargo out. But we will have this one feeding hydrogen as well. And that should re-kickstart all these power plants. Yeah, we should be able to do up to 6. And let's see. We'll let it max out for now. Could probably top it out at about 3K. As long as it actually will do that, we can use it elsewhere. I don't think it's being burned at a fast enough rate that we really need to worry here. But now these ones are all in line again. What about these ones up here? We can do, we can run another line over here just to help out this particular set, and we'll power them with hydrogen. Likewise. That's another 4. Oh, we don't need to do that. Okay, so these ones are online. Let's see if there's any other holes in the grid. No, I'm just going to delete these and these. We can always put them somewhere else and have a central point feeding them with hydrogen. Okay, this is where all hydrogen is coming in. So we've bolstered the grid a bit. We're still running at a bit of a max capacity due to the shields, or not shields, the power charging stations. But that will be fixable eventually. Let's see. We'll do kind of a sweep to see if any of the other clusters of these thermal plants are offline. Eventually, we're going to need to start aggressively pushing towards getting the Dyson Swarm up and running. That's going to give us better options for power. Yeah, in fact, I'm probably going to take this whole thing offline. Yeah, I'm going to do this. This whole section's going to come out. And instead, we're going to start saving up coal for proliferation. That is going to be a future project. Probably the first thing I start working on after the Dyson Swarm is up and doing its thing. But for now, we're going to put... Yeah, we're going to put you all in here. We'll stack up coal, because we're going to need coal to start proliferating. And so we'll just start having it being stored for now, and then once we're ready to do that, we'll have it on hand. Okay, I need to not fill all the slots up on this thing. Now up here. I guess I can have this thing. Right now this isn't going anywhere. I'm just going to connect this up to this main line. Then when we start pulling more of the graphite for different things, all these sites will be feeding that. This is one big graphite producing site. Then I might delete this out later. And rings, how are rings looking? Rings looking all right. Now over here, what I might do, I think about this. What I might do is let this run for a bit. I'm probably going to tinker around with this particular base offline between now and the next time I stream it, which is actually going to be a little while because I'm not going to be streaming next Thursday. But between now and the next time I stream this, I'm probably going to unhook these until I get the grid sufficiently boosted. But for now, I'm going to still be tinkering around with stuff, so we'll let the orbital collectors keep building. Eventually, I want this thing to be full of several of them that I can use. A couple stacks. But for now, because they draw so much power over here, I'll just limit that for now. But let's see, we got our rail ejectors and our receivers. Let's do that. We'll keep producing some more. So let's go ahead and save and kind of wrap up and take stock of what we've done. It might not have seemed like a lot of monumental progress, but getting the production centralized and having these things down here being produced is actually a really big deal. Getting orbital collection is going to help us a lot. Being able to start moving away from the more expensive production on things like graphene, also, again, very important. Actually, we'll put overflow over here. We're going to need so much of that. And so we're kind of getting set up to go into the mid to late game phase with the Swarm. I think, depending on what I tinker with offline, maybe I will get the Swarm up and running and explain how it works the next time rather than go through the mechanics of doing it. We'll see. It is kind of a cool process, but I think we are making good headway, finally. And then very soon we're gonna have to start worrying about more attacks from the dark fog and then taking the fight to space. So that's coming up relatively soon. But we'll go ahead and call it there. I'll pause. Let me go pull up the list and see who's online that we can raid. Oh, Bits is online. I know he popped in when Wazzy did the raid. So what we can do, let's go return the favor and go see how Bits is doing Pal World. I still want to try that eventually. But let's get that set up. So what I will do is, let's go ahead and meet BGM. Go to outro. And we will call that good. Again, a lot of technical work, but we did make progress. We're just not going to see it pay off until a little bit later. You'll just have to take my word for it. But in the meantime, thanks again for everyone who came and hung out. Shout outs to Wazzy for the raid. We will be back Sunday this weekend, the late night stream in the evening, 6:30 Pacific time unless something changes. And it will be the official launch stream for the new music album, Titanium Forest. So that should be a good time. We're talking a bit about the project and showing off some behind the scenes stuff. So if that sounds fun, feel free to drop by. Meantime, hope everyone has a good rest of your evening. Now let's go say what's up to Bits.